It's that point in the year, The Walking Dead Season 8 has reached its mid-season, a lot's happened, a lot hasn't happened. Here are my thoughts on the first 8 episodes. Enjoy. Just briefly before we start then, where did we leave off with Rick and the gang in Season 7? So at the end of Season 7, the Saviours attacked Rick and the group at Alexandria. And after the trash people made this devilish decision to turn to the dark side, Rick and co were left outnumbered and outgunned on the verge of execution. And then what we had is the tides beginning to turn, and Maggie, Morgan, Ezekiel and Shiva all launch in a valiant rescue, forcing the Saviours to retreat. So at the end of Season 7, we have Rick and the gang on the upper hand, and Negan and the Saviours in retreat. And we have this brilliant scene where Rick is reconciled with Maggie, and he gets his gun back from Daryl. Going into Season 8 then, we're tantalised with this prospect of all-out war, a period namely subtitled in the comics, and for the majority of the first 4 episodes, this expectation is largely fulfilled. Through Mercy, the Damned, monsters and some guy, guns blazing is certainly a key feature. And this ultimately leads all the way up to a crippling defeat for the soldiers of the kingdom, one in which Jeffrey, Ezekiel and Carol, our 3 main characters from the community, are lucky to survive. In that particular episode, the tragic death of Shiva was actually quite a moving moment, coming out of nowhere once again in sacrifice for King Ezekiel. Notably so far, the showrunners have actually spent a lot of time exploring the dynamic with King Ezekiel of illusion and reality. And this actually finally culminated in a show of prowess and sacrifice in the season finale, whereby, upon being trapped, he actually breaks out and goes to save his community, sacrificing himself, almost a role reversal from that of his tiger Shiva. However, guns blazing didn't yield all successes in my opinion, and many a video game infinite ammo seen later, I was almost bored with the bombardment of attacks and underwhelmed by the lacklustre special effects. I mean, one particular scene, I will not mention it very much, featuring Rosita and an RPG was so poorly executed, it was borderline hilarious. However, as aforementioned with Shiva, there is some intimacy within scenes this season, and it quite often occurs in unexpected ways. Notably, a scene between Negan and Gabriel is devoid of gunfire in episode 5. Since Rick and co have lured a herd of walkers to surround the sanctuary, they're consequently trapped, and through a sentimental confession from Negan and some elongated dialogue, the duo are actually forced to work together in order to get back to safety, in what I thought was one of the better executed scenes from the first half of this season. And why was Gabriel in this situation, you may ask? Well, that was largely down to beloved fan favourite character Gregory, and his selfishness once again. His character will still leave you asking, why isn't he dead? Through multiple near-death encounters and shows of mercy, even into Season 8. Nevertheless, Xander Berkeley does execute the character well, and his childish attempts to suck up to characters and addressing Maggie as Margaret never ceases to amuse me. Yet, standout performances this half-season actually go to the likes of Berkeley and Stephen Ogg, who plays Simon, one of Negan's lieutenants, both of whom transfer a real energy and charisma into their characters that really helps push scenes along despite their low screen time. Speaking of which, the main weakness of this first half season, in my opinion, is an extension of this point on screen time. The leads, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Andrew Lincoln, who enact the central roles of Negan and Rick with this level of sincerity that is absent in the other characters, are notably absent themselves through many of the 8 episodes, leaving arguably weaker and less interesting characters like Ezekiel and Eugene to do this heavy lifting. And as for the finale then, well, Carl's revelation did little in the way to enthrall me. The exploding houses at Alexandria were just another example of the poor attention to detail on the effects. I mean, houses were exploding from the inside when shot with grenade launchers. Overall, it simply served to undo all the progress Rick and his group had made and turn the tables back to Negan's side just as it was last season, proving exceptionally dissatisfying. On the whole then, I think this season is really characterised by fatigue in the writing room. I mean, the tension and cliffhangers from previous seasons are just gone. The character rivalries and horror elements are neglected, and ultimately we're disappointingly left with what is essentially a show that's average at best. I mean, watching with relatively little thought this season will still entertain you, but it really pushes home the recent idea that seasons 3 and 4 were actually the glory days for the show. While some standout moments with key characters like Carol, Daryl and Maggie were impressive, they were merely single scenes in comparison to the scope and confusion of all the episodes. In conclusion then, it was just very underwhelming, and unfortunately it cements this idea to me that the love and affection the writers once had for the show has seriously faded. Okay, rant over. Thank you very much for watching, and for more critiques like this, you know where to go.